So the most recent update on Pokeclicker I think was overall pretty good. It added the Friend Safari, so now you can EV train Pokemon you otherwise couldn't before, and they finally gave the event calendar a function, making it so that you can start events for a fee at any time besides Halloween, which is very convenient, especially if you are like me who only had a few event Pokemon remaining to catch in order to get every Pokemon. Along with a number of other changes, one of them caught my eye, that being the quest point rebalance. I was pretty excited for this change, mainly because I thought it would buff the less desirable quests, because so many of them were just outclassed when compared to other types such as Underground or Shiny Quest. A lot of the quests fell short when it came to the time you put in versus the reward. So what did this rebalance do? Did it buff unrewarding route quest, the painfully drawn out oak item quest, or the inconsistent gym quest? Nope, it nerfed gym quest for some reason, it gave a buff to farm quest, and nerfed money and dungeon token quests to the ground, then made egg hatching quests require more, and then finally, it buffed type catching quest. Now let me go into more details to why some of these don't make much sense. Starting off with gym quest, they just had their quest point reward cut by about half. Before, you could be making like 500 to 1700 quest points each. Now you are making around 400 to 1000. I'm just not sure why they felt the need to nerf gym quest. It wasn't something people complained about. I don't believe it was too OP, but I have seen some people say it was because it was too easy, which I suppose is one reason, but I just don't think it was breaking the balance of the game. I think it was nerfed probably because you could just go back to Kanto and farm gyms there, but even after the nerf, this is still a good strategy. It was and still is outclassed by Underground quests though. I just think that gym quests weren't something that had to be nerfed. Most people you ask would just tell you to do Underground quests, and if it was because it was easy, well, all the quests are easy and cheap later on in the game. What makes a quest good is how much time and effort you put in for the reward, and I think the gym quests were fine as they were. Thankfully, I'm past the point of needing a bunch of quest points for shop mons, and my way of farming quest points wasn't affected, but I feel this change will definitely make quest points harder to farm in the future. Overall, I think it was a pretty silly change in my opinion. I didn't think any of the quests were blatantly overpowered. Even with the ability to go to early regions to farm faster, it was still outclassed by Underground quests, which are pretty free in-game. So after writing this script, I found this chart with the reasons for the quest changes, and I think it's pretty good. So let's look at this. Okay, yeah, I agree with that. It does take a while for specific types, so this is good. Yeah, you are missing out on farm setups with this one, so it does need a good reward, I think. Too much reward? I don't know about that. I mean, those shop mons and evolution items quickly start to stack up. You need a lot of quest points. But I mean, at least there's a reason, even if I don't think it's that much of a problem. Yeah, it's hard in early regions and whatnot, but I don't know if we should balance quests based on if it's easier end-game. I mean, once again, it wasn't broken or anything, but I mean, if they don't nerf it too hard, then I'm fine. But, those numbers ain't good. I mean, it took them 5 minutes on average to beat the quest, with an average payout of 528 quest points. I'm guessing they weren't using a farm setup because, man, 5 minutes for 528 quest points is pretty terrible. I'm questioning why they didn't buff it with these numbers. What's this? It took them 5 minutes to beat an Underground quest on average, with the average quest requiring 8 items to dig. High manual effort and money cost? I mean, I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny to define gym clears with clicking for gyms as being too easy. It needs nerfing, but spamming 3 buttons is high manual effort, but it's whatever. Now onto the farm quest. This one was actually a good buff. It made it so that berry quests can't have a berry that's base growth time is over 3 hours, and I believe it boosted the quest point rewards from farm point quest. Overall, a good change. I still feel that the berry specific quests are weak because they are situational. It is very hard for a quest that pays out 1 to 2,000 quest points to compete with the others when you have to wait 30 minutes to 3 hours to get the payout. I still feel that the berry quests are quests you just skip over unless you happen to have a field full of ripe berries, in which case you just refresh your list. The farm often can't be used for these types of quests, especially because it's often used by other setups such as Wander, Egg Hatch, or Eevee setups. The farm point quests have potential with very high farm point per hour setups like Colbur nonsense, but otherwise it's just okay in my opinion. It does make for some nice quest points when AFKing though. The next change, revolving around the money and dungeon token quest, is probably the worst change. So at first, they don't sound too bad. The requirements scale up as you progress through the regions, but the rewards are better. But these new quests are kinda crazy. So before we look at the quest numbers, looking at the reason for the change makes sense. Before, it didn't scale, so if you were in Galar, you would just have to defeat one Pokemon or catch one and boom, the quest was over. It was basically a freebie. It was nice for leveling up your quest level, but there was basically no effort on the player's part to complete it. The quest rewards weren't great. The money one only giving you like 200 if you were lucky, but the dungeon token one was actually kind of decent. Sometimes on the high end giving you around 600, and all you had to do was catch like 1 or 2 Pokemon if you were in the in-game. So they weren't good, but were sometimes decent when you got lucky, but these new numbers are just worse than the ones before. So before, all you had to do was defeat a handful of Pokemon, you would get a few hundred quest points. Well, guess what you have to do now in Galar? Oh boy, that's a lot of dungeon tokens. Surely I would get a hefty amount of quest points for that, considering how much I got before. I mean... Huh. Well, okay, maybe the money one isn't that bad. I mean, it's money, right? Okay. Yeah, they kind of went overboard with the numbers. I've seen people try to defend it on the Discord by saying it only takes around 7 to 10 minutes of catching Pokemon, which 7 minutes? Keep in mind these players often had max or near max achievement bonus, but okay, fine, whatever. Surely I'm over exaggerating. Let me go see how long this quest takes, okay? And how long does the underground quest take again? Right, okay. So they fixed the quest that was too easy and didn't take much effort by making you just not want to do it. Brilliant. Now, I'm not sure what the numbers are for earlier regions, but at least in Galar and in-game, they are pretty terrible. I just think the funniest thing is, I'm pretty sure this is meant to be a buff to these two types of quests, but the super high numbers they gave just made it worse than before. Now, the Egg Quest one I don't mind. They had the requirements scale with the region you're in, like the money and dungeon token ones, but it isn't that bad. It seems to be about double what it was before, and it feels like you earn more quest points from them. This change isn't as drastic as the money and DT one, and Egg Hatch quests are still a good source of quest points in my opinion. The higher eggs required are a bit annoying if you don't use an egg setup in the farm, but at this point in the game you should have access to it. And of course you have vitamins that can breed by the lowest egg steps, so this change is okay by me. It feels like a slight nerf, but one I can live with. The last change I want to talk about is the typed catching quest. I actually quite like this change. It seems like the reward got just about doubled with no other changes to it. Personally, I wouldn't do them as they take too long to complete when compared to other quests with similar payout, but it's nice this one got buffed, because it was rather forgettable before. I still think they don't pay that well for how long it takes, but it's better now for sure. So yeah, I believe that covers everything about the quest rebalance. They didn't really list any specifics in the patch notes, so I wasn't able to get exact numbers on things. So to recap, gym quests got nerfed, but are mostly the same. Farm quests are better now. Money and DT quests are at comically high numbers now. Egg hatch quests need a bit more eggs to complete now, and type catch quests are buffed. I'm pretty mixed on this aspect of the update. It buffed some quests which were nice, but it also nerfed some of the better quest point farms, and other quests it attempted to buff ended up being worse. Gems are still good to farm, but it's a shame they got nerfed. Really the main thing they should do is lower the amount of money and DT for the quest, because they are too high at the moment for the payout. Of course, I've been talking about this rebalance from the perspective of being in Galar and having the max possible numbers on the scaling quest, so things may be different for you if you are in an early region. I'll probably do a video on the rest of the features of this update, mainly the event calendar and Friend Safari because they are such nice additions to the game. But yeah, I figured I'd just put my thoughts on this rebalance because I think some of the changes were pointless or bad. Feel free to leave your opinions of the rebalance of the update in the comments, as I'm sure some of y'all will disagree with me, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Alright, bye bye now.